Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream, and thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Day 8 following the Israeli aggression on Iran and the beginning of the Iranian True Promise 3 campaign, with Iran gradually increasing its attacks against Israel and proving that the Israeli air defense systems are failing time after time. Earlier on, I posted a video about the attack that Iran carried out this morning on the Bi'r al-Saba area in the southern part of occupied Palestine, which is the main city, the capital of the south. The strike was carried out by Iran with a single missile that Israel confirmed at the time landed without any sort of interception. According to Israeli sources and Israeli media, it penetrated all of the layers of the Israeli air defense systems to target a cyber and intelligence location for the Israeli security services. Not long after that, a huge offensive was carried out from the Iranian armed forces towards Haifa. And again, we saw missiles landing with severe blows. This time, Iran completely destroyed the building of the Ministry of Interior inside of Israel. Now, in relation to Israel and how it approaches these attacks, in many cases, Israel has no option but to confirm that there were landings, but to try and minimize the damage. They will not say exactly what has been hit. The media would say, for example, it appears to be that a residential place has been hit, only to minimize the damage and not to make sure Iran knows exactly what and where it landed its missiles on Israel. But then again, by the actual images and footage that comes out, clearly you can see what has been hit and what has been damaged. Now, more talks are coming out about the United States preparing. The United States recently sent 5 ships to the coasts of Israel. More analysts speaking about a preparation, despite Donald Trump saying that, well, he's going to think about it for 2 weeks, or he might have an answer during the next 2 weeks. The only significant development that we have so far that might give diplomacy an option is the fact that the Iranian foreign minister will go to Geneva to speak with some European leaders, particularly about the Iranian nuclear program, not about anything else related to Iran's strategic capabilities or missiles. And from the reports that we're hearing, and I'm going to go through all of them with you tonight, it is a case of Iran reassuring, by what the reports are saying, that they will not be having nuclear weapons. However, let's begin with the attacks that were carried out today. The most intense attack in the northern part of Israel was on Haifa, and multiple videos came out. I'm going to share the majority of them with you in this live stream, including the damage that the building sustained after the attacks. Let's have a look. So that was the first video that was published. However, there were other videos as well. This was one of them. Let's have a look. Then there were other angles from which the missile was seen, the attack. This was one of them over here. And there was another video of the damage on the actual building, and this is the damage. This is the Israeli Ministry of Interior, where everything that's related to civilians matters gets processed. All of the responsibilities of the Israeli Ministry of Interior. And this location in the city of Haifa houses the main government offices. It's similar to the Kiryat in relation to the General Command, which is in Tel Aviv, but this one is more government offices inside the city of Haifa. And as we can see from this damage, the building was completely destroyed. This damage is similar to the level of damage that the Weizmann Institute had, which was damage to a level where it was completely destroyed. This was another angle of the damage on this building inside the city of Haifa. And you can see behind it more government buildings, including the famous rocket-shaped building that the Israeli government uses for municipality purposes inside the city of Haifa. So missiles landing directly. We've had also images from the mountainous areas of the city of Haifa of this attack. As you can see, a huge attack coming from the Iranians on Haifa. What does that tell us in relation to Israel's air defense systems, especially several hours after Israel was attacked on yet again another strategic location by Iran without any interception? And at that time, it was a single missile. We can clearly see that there's something going wrong there. As a matter of fact, Israeli media is talking more and more about the fact that Iranian missiles are becoming more and more accurate in recent days. They are saying that there's a difference from what Iran has done previously, and now the missiles are becoming more and more accurate. Multiple reports, multiple articles spoke about this accuracy coming from Iran, and we can see that as evidence when Israel confirms that one missile was landing without any sort of interception. That means Iran is using certain technologies. Of course, there are multiple interpretations that could be combined, but these include Iran using certain missiles that have the ability to penetrate all of Israel's air defense systems without any problem, to a shortage of the Israeli air defense systems, or a failure. And if Israel, and the reports, especially like the one that came out of the Wall Street Journal several days ago, that panicked the leadership of the IDF, speaking about the fact that Israel is running out of missiles for its air defense systems, that means Israel will have to choose the areas very carefully that it wants to protect and not completely use all of its air defense missiles, because again, there is no infinite supply. At the end of the day, they are quite limited. And one very important factor here is the fact that Israel has been in a state of war for 2 years. They've had serious escalations with Lebanon, of course, with the Gaza Strip and the Gaza genocide, alongside other fronts too, and missiles being intercepted from Yemen. Now, the types of Israeli air defense systems that Israel would use with Iran are a combination. These would be a combination of the Arrow, David Sling, and also the Iron Dome. There were reports that they used THAAD and another system called Barak for the first time, or Thunder in English. That means Israel is using everything when it comes to Iran. But the main missiles and systems that they would use initially would be the Arrow 3, because the Arrow 3 is the system that is intended to hypersonic ballistic missiles. However, even with the Arrow 3, the interception limit is up to 6 Mach. At the end of the day, the Iranian missiles, they start launching, reach a speed of up to 5 to 6 Mach. Then if they leave the atmosphere, many of them can reach up to 17 and 18 Mach. These are speeds that Israel simply cannot handle. Then the alternatives that Israel takes, or part of this multi-layered air defense mechanism that Israel uses, is if these missiles go into the atmosphere and into the Israeli airspace, they start using the smaller, or the systems that are intended for medium range to short range missiles, the David Sling and the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome was designated primarily for the threat of short range missiles coming from Gaza or Lebanon. They start, of course, using that to try and intercept either the missile itself when it invades the Israeli airspace, or any fragments of the missile. Now, the problem is Iran is sending missiles now that have warheads that can release multiple warheads. Israel is facing a lot of problems with that because of the speed, the velocity, and the fact that they are using missiles that have a multi-warhead missile that release multiple smaller missiles when they try and reach their targets. This is showing a couple of things. Number one, that Israel is not shielded. As a matter of fact, Israel is failing miserably with its air defense systems. Israel was establishing these air defense systems to have an answer to that threat, to the threat of any missiles coming at it. But clearly, we're not seeing any answer to the missiles that are coming from Iran. Hence, why Benjamin Netanyahu is now talking about the threat of strategic ballistic missiles against the state of Israel. Part of the campaign, or part of the reason that Netanyahu went on this campaign against Iran, is the fact that the talks between the United States and Iran did not include anything but the nuclear program. Now, Donald Trump started to play ball with Israel by asking Iran to stop enriching uranium altogether. However, he did not speak about their strategic missiles. Now we're reaching a stage where, the Iranians are saying it's not negotiable whatsoever, but they wouldn't mind talking about the nuclear case. Still don't mind talking about the nuclear, but not with the Americans. We have this report here about the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi going to Geneva to speak with some European leaders about Iran's nuclear program. And he clarified very clearly that he's not going to be talking to them about anything but the nuclear program. And again, to make sure, because from Iran's perspective, they are still interested. They were negotiating before. Iran is a country that does look outwards, but when it's forced to take responsive measures, such as the case now when Israel started to carry out acts of aggression and terror against them, they have to respond, and they have to respond in a way or in a level that would deter any such aggressions from reoccurring again. So the Iranian foreign minister clarified they're not talking with the Americans, firstly. Then Oman also said that the Iranians and the Americans will not be talking directly or through mediation, despite certain statements coming from the United States about these talks continuing, still going ahead, reports that Iran denied. And Iran clearly stated we're not interested in talking unless the Israeli aggression stops. There is no point of talking. Therefore, they're only talking with their counterparts in Europe. European countries, some of which are pushing Donald Trump to stop this escalation. There were statements coming from the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer urging Donald Trump to de-escalate and not push for an expansion of this war. Now, European countries, they might have their own reasons why not to escalate tensions with Iran, but in short, they're incapable of doing anything. I believe the United States is trying to portray this image of strength, despite the fact that Iran has answers to all of the threats coming from the United States, unless that is the United States is willing to use full-blown nuclear power on Iran. And is that going to happen? Now, reports now are saying that that might be actually the case. The United States might be preparing some tactical nuclear attacks against Iran. All of that is still in the realm of speculation and in the realm of the unknown. In the meantime, well, we know that Israel has nuclear bombs and nuclear warheads that have been kept secret for a very long time. And if Israel is failing with all of that with Iran, why doesn't Israel use these bombs? So from an Iranian perspective, they still haven't began even. What Iran is doing now is the initial phase of response on Israel. Iran has way more capacity, and Iran still hasn't even mentioned or haven't began its other options if an aggression expands against Iran. And the same Iranian foreign minister, he said that they're going to keep plummeting the Zionist regime, keep pummeling, the Zionist regime, and keep attacking them so long as this aggression continues. And the Iranian president is saying that the only way that they would go back to the negotiating table to move forward with the nuclear program is to have a complete and unconditional stop of the Israeli aggression against them. Now, despite the fact that Donald Trump reports said that he didn't give Israel a green light, although Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with him many times. Despite the fact that Donald Trump, almost gave a heads up to Iran by removing some of the American staff from the region, indicating that an attack is coming, telling Turkey that an attack is about to happen. Turkey later on telling Iran that an attack is coming too. He is now using this to his advantage. Donald Trump wants to have more leverage against Iran in anything to do with negotiations. But from an Iranian perspective, they're not going to give that to Donald Trump. At the end of the day, the Iranians, they view the aggression of Israel against them as an act of war. They need to respond to this, and they do not include this in any sort of talks coming between them and the Americans because they're not connected. They haven't began as connected issues. The only connection that was there is the influence that Israel had on the American President Donald Trump in relation to enriching uranium with Iran. And the fact that Donald Trump is even considering or asking the Iranians not to enrich uranium, apart from the hypocrisy, the double standards of a country that has nuclear power, one of the biggest nuclear powers on earth that actually has used the nuclear bombs against the Japanese, the only country that used nuclear bombs against the civilian population, the United States of America, leading to 250,000 dead and damage that the people still suffering to this day. There's a level of hypocrisy in the way they approach it. For example, the Americans met with the Pakistanis. Donald Trump met with the Pakistani defense minister, and he was only praising Pakistan. Pakistan is a nuclear country. And he was saying things like, oh, yeah, they deserve peace awards and what have you, hailing Pakistan, supporting them. Yet with Iran, he doesn't want that with them. Again, the influence is coming primarily from Israel, but from an Israeli perspective, from an Iranian perspective, they're not considering that. Now, moving on to the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, some people try and portray as if, some people in Iran, they are with Israel. Of course, Israel does have cells. There are people who don't necessarily approve of the Iranian government. But again, there's a lot of propaganda going on. And today, that propaganda was completely debunked with the level of people going out in the Iranian streets and protesting to support Iran and support their leadership in their response to the attacks that Israel is conducting inside of Iran. And these protests did not just happen in Iran, they happened in multiple parts of the world too. These were some of the images of some of the protests happening in Iran. This is particularly in an area called Al-Ahwaz, which is in the western part of Iran. People were going out protesting and supporting their government, as we can see in this video here. So clearly, the Iranian people are standing firm with their country's right to defend itself against this Israeli aggression. However, there were also protests in multiple parts of the world, including in Yemen. Millions, as usual, went out to show their solidarity. And also in Iraq. In Iraq, it was a really large protest coming in Sadr city of hundreds of thousands of people out in the streets to show their solidarity with Iran and in support of the Iranians and their right to respond to this attack. Now, in relation to Iraq, there's a high level of sensitivity here because the United States knows very well that Iran has influence in Iraq. They know very well that Iraq is a place where they can, well, get hit really bad in case an escalation happens between them and the Iranians. Now, previously, the embassy in Iraq, the embassy of the United States in Baghdad, came under attack. And at the time, there were protests against the American occupying forces in the area. But now there are reports coming out speaking about evacuation. There were videos of some of the staff in the embassy in Baghdad evacuating. There were reports about these evacuations. But there were other reports saying that they're closing the actual embassy in Baghdad, and that wasn't the case. It wasn't true that they closed the embassy. It was only a case of them taking some of the staff out and having evacuations because they are preparing for a potential escalation that might come in the next few days or few weeks. That's assuming that the United States would want to participate in this aggression that Israel is conducting against Iran. Now, a couple of other things that I wanted to share with you is we shared some of the videos that came from the attack on Haifa, the Ministry of Interior in Haifa, with another image here and the videos. Iran also released some videos, and I wanted to share some of these videos with you. So these were some, this was one video of the missiles launching. We had other videos as well. This one was one of them.
ماشاءالله برو شاهرا سیفی لا حول ولا قوة شمشیر من.
So these were some of the videos, and then we have an image further away, and these were the missiles that were launched today on Haifa in the noontime, according to the reports that were coming out from Iranian media. And one of them was potentially the one that was initially launched on Bir al-Sabah. This was another angle of the attack or of the missiles being launched from Iran as well. So these were the images that and footage that came from Iran today of the missiles being launched on Israel. Now, what can we understand about this? You have Iran launching missiles during the day, sometimes during the night as well, on Israel, when Israel is claiming that it has full freedom in Iran's airspace. The reason why I showed you this, and one of the reasons that the Iranians also probably showed this, is to prove how much of a huge lie it is, this claim coming from Israel that they have control over the Iranian airspace. Israel doesn't have control over its own airspace. Israel isn't able to defend its own airspace, and now they are confirming that our defense is not hermetic. Our defense can be penetrated. Today they confirmed that a single Iranian missile penetrated all of the 4 layers of air defense of Israel without one of them intercepting it and without even detecting it. This is a clear proof that Israel has no control on its own airspace, and that it's Iran who has complete freedom in the airspace of the occupied territories. Yet, from an Iranian perspective, they're clearly at liberty to launch these missiles from over the ground, not from under the ground, mobilize, because these are very heavy missiles at the end of the day, several tons, very long, very big. They need to take them out, move them, position them in the right angle, the right direction, and then launch them. That's called capability. That's called independence. That's called control. Iran clearly has solid control in its airspace and on its territories. Now, moving on to, I wanted to speak with you about Gaza. In Gaza, of course, we are still facing, we're still seeing a genocide happening with horrible images coming out from the Gaza Strip day after day. But the Palestinian resistance has been conducting operations against Israel that proves time after time of how capable they are. And some of the scenes that came out today from the Palestinian resistance haven't been seen in movies even. For example, let me share a video with you here, and I will comment on exactly what's happening in this video. The armed wing of Hamas al-Qassam brigades, today they released this video. In this video, they're talking about an ambush as part of the series of David's stones against Israel inside of the Gaza Strip, targeting in a complex operation the vehicles of the enemy, according to the statement, to the north of the Zanna area in Khan Yunis, south of the Gaza Strip. And in this video, they posted some previous videos. However, this operation took place on the 14th of June, and now the Palestinian resistance published it. The ambush that took place took down one leader of a unit, a commander of a unit, and a soldier from the Kfir brigade, and it also targeted two officers that were wounded and that belonged to the Israeli IDF intelligence. And here they're monitoring, again, the Palestinian resistance showing you that they're monitoring the genocide vehicles inside of the Gaza Strip over the ground, indicating again freedom of movement inside of Gaza. And here was they were monitoring them from another place remotely to show that they are preparing for the operation. Up until we reached the stage where they were, of course, preparing these devices, then the Israeli vehicles arrive in that area and they get exploded completely. This was a second camera where they posted this video, and then they targeted one of the tanks with a Palestinian-made Yasin 105 RPG, targeting the Merkava tank, as we can see here. Now, what's interesting is what happened after this. So they targeted, but some of the tanks fled because clearly there was a unit or a group of Palestinian resistance fighters targeting that. Then one of the tanks tried to get away. And look what happened when that tank tried to get away. Let's have a look here. So in case you didn't really understand what you were seeing over there, you were seeing Palestinian resistance fighters following a tank on foot, trying to go into the tank. At one point, they were pressing some of the buttons, trying to go into the tank as it's fleeing them. Did you understand? Did you grasp the concept of what's happening? Do you understand the nature of these people Israel is facing inside of the Gaza Strip? They're following the tanks with their bodies. They're not shielded or anything. They're going, following a tank, trying to open it, because the previous unit targeted, there was another unit that was meant to have a direct confrontation, and they weren't holding the same arms that the other unit had. Therefore, they were trying to get into the tank by simply just shooting and pressing Some reports said that they were also shouting, "Well, what are you afraid of? Open the tank and get out of the tank." But the Israeli tank was fleeing, and no one from the tank dared to even think about opening the tank and trying to, for example, shoot them or whatever, because they could have potentially had a device that they could plant on the tank, which wasn't the case in this scenario here, therefore risking the lives of everyone inside of that tank. But that shows you the bravery of the Palestinian resistance fighter versus the cowardice of the Israeli genocide terrorist. They are there trying to kill innocent people left, right, and center, starving them to death. But the natives fighting to protect their land, they're not afraid of everything. That's belief, that's faith, that's being on the side of justice, that's being on the right side, and that's being a native of the land. That's being the true native of the land, not a foreign object planting itself on the land against the will of the indigenous people. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu is saying that, they're proceeding with the operation inside of the Gaza Strip up until they achieve all of the objectives of the war. Netanyahu is still repeating the same statement. We're going to continue up until we achieve the objectives of the war. Now, victory over Hamas and returning the Israeli prisoners of war. He's no longer saying destroying the Hamas, preparing the ground for a potential deal that would not include destroying the Hamas, which was mission impossible, and which would automatically mean that Israel failed in the war if you do not achieve your declared objectives at the beginning of the war. That means you have failed in this war, and this is what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing now. Yet despite that, Benjamin Netanyahu is still trying to show that he is achieving some sort of an advancement inside of the Gaza Strip, or some sort of success inside of the Gaza Strip. Now, the final thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the Iranian president. The Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, today said that the only way to stop this war, not to go into the negotiations were a separate story that I spoke about before, is an unconditional cessation of the Israeli aggression and providing guarantees to end the adventures of the Zionists. So the only way to end the war, according to the Iranian president, unconditionally stopping the Israeli aggression and providing guarantees to end the adventures of the Zionists. Then he added, our responses against the enemy will become harder, and it will make it regret what it has conducted or what it has done against the Iranian nation. This is proving time after time that Iran is still capable, and that Iran hasn't even used a fraction of what it can do, especially with Israel. And by the way, we're still not talking about any American participation. If the United States decides to participate in this aggression against Iran, side by side with Israel, then you're talking about a completely different scenario. At the end of the day, if Iran so far was only attacking Israel with its long-range missiles, then the other options of its navy, its ground forces, and everything else relating to the Strait of Hormuz, for example, that will cause huge problems for Israel and the United States and global economy too. All of these options will be on the table. Now, we have footage just coming out now. There was an Iranian object going through Iraq, Jordan, and Syria that has landed in an area that is reported to be Haifa. Let's have a look at this recent video that's coming out.
لا لا استفاء بالهواء نزل شمالي. طلع لا لا استفاء بالهواء نزل شمالي. طلع لا لا استفاء بالهواء نزل شمالي.
So for those of you joining now, this is one of Iran's recent attacks. That is, according to the report circulating now, this is coming fresh in the north of Israel, so probably off the coast of Haifa. It's the first time that we see something like that, and to be fair, I'm not entirely sure what it is. I mean, is it a drone that launched something? Is it a missile that's landing? It's like opening up the airspace. I don't know. These appear to be like movie scenes to me, to be honest with you. If any of you know what that could be, then tell me, because I'm not really sure. I haven't seen something like that falling like this. Reports saying it's a drone. I'm not sure if it's a drone, but all I know is that the reports that are coming now are saying that it's a drone, and it apparently went through Iraq, Jordan, and Syria to later land near Haifa. Now, off the shores of Haifa, Israel is confirming this, by the way, on in Israeli media. They're finding it hard to hide the facts now. So we have this report in the Israeli media saying that the Israeli Air Force attacked dozens of sites in Iran, and a drone was sighted without prior warning again. Without prior warning, Iranian drone approaches Haifa Bay. So in Israel, they're saying it's a drone landing in the Haifa Bay. Now, off the Haifa Bay, of course, Israel has military and intelligence locations over there that belong to the Israeli Navy. But deeper into off the coast of Haifa, you have gas fields. The Israeli Leviathan and the Israeli Karish would not be too far off the coast of Haifa. And in the south, they would have another gas field. Now, the gas field, Iran already attacked it, by the way, with a hypersonic missile already. But this is something new. Israel is saying that it's a drone. And again, that's the video here, which, yeah, it seems like it's something new that we haven't really seen before. Now, one other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, by the way, is the fact that there was an earthquake in Iran today. Israeli reports are saying that this earthquake happened near the Fordo nuclear site inside of Iran. This is the same site that Israel is asking the United States' help to attack, because it needs heavier missiles and different types of aircraft and air force to be used against it, especially bunker busters. There's an argument that even the United States' heaviest and strongest bunker buster would not be able to penetrate. Regardless of that, the Israelis are still asking. But there was this report in the Israeli media today about an earthquake in Fordo. Again, confirming, and of course the earthquake reports came in other parts too. But Israel wants to attack this site. Now, there have been already suspicions because, well, we know that there's technology that they can make earthquakes and even tsunamis too. Is this another attack, or was this totally natural? Iran has earthquakes at the end of the day. It has seen earthquakes before, but it's a little bit suspicious that there's an earthquake now in Fordo that Israel wants to attack and is still not getting the approval of the United States to carry out an attack in. Raises a lot of questions. Did they actually do something, or was it something natural? And if you're joining me now, this is the recent and very strange drone that came from Iran on Israel. And if you're joining me now, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and from joining me from the beginning to this live stream. Quick shout out to everyone who sent supers: Alexander, Sheetster, May, Tony, Michael, Muffy, Mr. Riffley, Boomer, and Alan. Thank you very much for your support. May is saying, any update on the captured Israeli pilots? We haven't had an update yet. The last thing we heard is that Iran said that they're going to publish some statements. One Iranian source said that some of the confessions that they're going to make are going to shock everyone. But we haven't seen anything so far from them or any further updates. And there were reports that said initially there was one female pilot being captured by Iran. Then another report came that another one was captured too. In total, Iran said that it took down at least four F-35 fighter jets. But again, we haven't seen evidence of that and all of the details surrounding that. It could be a case that they're trying to keep it a secret or not reveal anything that was used against them. And so Snowy as well, thank you very much. Let's see if we had any other questions as well. Sheetster is saying Al Jazeera seems to be pushing the bunker bombs. Confused, who are they supporting? Thoughts? Also, why can't Pakistan establish the no-fly zone? Without the air force of the IDF, this issue is resolved. Keep up the strong work. Thank you very much. I believe that Arab mainstream media, and let me not start naming them, but I mean, you mentioned one of them now, but I believe that Arab mainstream media, and I actually wrote a post about this not long ago, is deliberately trying to undermine the huge successes and accomplishments of the Iranians to hide and cover up the shameful positions and complicity of many Arab regimes. And I'm going to be very specific about this, not conclusive about everyone, but this is what I have viewed so far. And let me give you an example, because I, of course, monitor the Arab media, the Hebrew media in Arabic and in Hebrew, and of course, English media. But in Arabic, in Arab media, because some of them will have the English version, right? But you will see some headlines, for example, in Arab mainstream media, the Iranians are struggling. Why Iran is unable to provide an answer. Iran is flexing muscles over Israel. Statements like that have a deliberate intention of being derogatory in a way, alongside some other corrupt and depraved voices that only spew venom against Iran for any purpose on earth, whether it's a racist reason or a sectarian reason or any other reason that they may want to have. And again, we've had a campaign at the end of the day against Iran. And one notable thing here is that many of the Arab regimes, they did not have a problem with Iran, by the way, when the Shah was running Iran. So they weren't even speaking too much about anything to do with sectarianism or, how the Persians want to occupy and this and that. Now, that's not to kind of say Iran is, or the Iranian authorities is like totally innocent and they haven't had any wrongdoings. No, they have. Of course they have. But now we're in a position of truth versus falsehood, light versus darkness. What, are we blind, or are we going to pretend that we're blind? And even if you had any sort of differences with Iran or with the establishment or with how it's run or whatever it is, Iran is attacking a country that is committing a genocide against innocent civilians and killing children every single day in Gaza, when hardly anyone else is. Iran is the only state that in its entirety, government, people, forces, attacks Israel and has this approach towards Israel. Because let's talk about Yemen, because Yemen, I always talk about them and their bravery as well. But Yemen, you have two authorities. And Ansarullah, Sana'a. Saying that, of course, they're supported by millions of people. Iran, it's in its entirety. What Iran should be getting now is full support, full backing. But some of the Arab states, of course, or some of the Arab regimes, to be more precise, have a position of protecting Israel. That's, if we don't want to kind of be more specific and say that they're guard dogs for the state of Israel. So that's the reason why I believe these things are happening, and you might read that and kind of sometimes not exactly understand. And they will do that in a very malicious way, by the way. So they will talk about certain accomplishments, but all of a sudden they will always come up with, the weaknesses, the regime is struggling, America's about to go in, playing on the side of, American warmongering and scaring type propaganda. But unfortunately for them, that's not going to work, because guess what? We're getting all of the evidence coming every single day from Israel itself. And Cookie as well, thank you, said, when did this unknown twin stones from hell land? Just literally in the past hour. And Israel is saying it's a drone. I don't know what that is, if you ask me. I mean, if someone knows, please tell me. But this just landed in the Bay of Haifa, opening the sky. It's like a scene from a movie. Two objects going down, followed by another object. Are they trying to... And this is not, by the way, a light bomb, because Israel will sometimes use light bombs if they want to find something in the sea. They were like two objects going, and this is also not an interception, because Israel said the following: the report from Israel commenting about this actual hold on a second, where did that report go? Yeah, the report that's coming from Israel said it was actually a drone, and that here it is. This is the report that came from Israel, that there was a drone off the coast and that it came from Iraq, Jordan, and Syria, and that Israel wasn't able to intercept it. So clearly they're talking about a drone. Again, very strange. Maybe some experts will tell us later on what that is. I'll look forward to that. Let me see if we have any more questions in the stream. And Adil M, thank you very much for that. Z112IT, maybe an Israeli attack missile with a malfunction. Doesn't look like it, because the malfunction is usually faster than that, and you would be able to see a trail of it being launched. They have no targets there, by the way. And it doesn't look like any of the previous Israeli malfunctions. Palitelli, do I think it's the beginning of the fall of Israel? I thought it was the beginning of the fall from October the 7th. I mean, all of that Israel has been doing for a very long time now is buy time. That's why they always have plans to expel more Palestinians so they can control the demographics. That's why they constantly have temporary deals. Nothing solid, nothing substantial. And we've reached a level now where all of the cards have been revealed. Everything has been exposed by now. So there are two ways out, in my opinion. Either this all escalates and continues up until one side destroys the other completely. And what I mean by destroys doesn't necessarily need to mean like a bloodbath of hundreds of thousands of millions of people. No, but by completely dismantling the apartheid regime that controls Palestine. That's the short of it. Taking down the regime that has been established and what is called Israel. And then implementing a system that is based on the law, that is based on equal rights, and that grants everyone between the Jordan River to the sea equal rights. Israel never implemented that system. So I think it's going to continue, because even if they have a ceasefire tomorrow, or if there's a temporary deal, you still have the same problem. So the same state that was founded on oppression, on supremacy, on inequality, on terrorism, on ethnic cleansing, and the same entity and establishment that has conducted this genocide for this period is still there. And what are we going to do with it? If they had the capacity to do this now, and it's not just Benjamin Netanyahu, by the way, it's the state of Israel itself. Benjamin Netanyahu has a lot of support in Israel. What if someone worse than him comes in the future? What are we going to do then? Say, oh my goodness, oh no, the extremists. No, it's not that. So I believe we're going to be seeing a case of very high levels of intensity, even if there is a ceasefire tomorrow. Because look at the two ceasefires that happened in the past year and a half. The first one was a temporary ceasefire that was open for an extension. And it was Israel, it was the defense minister at the time, another wanted war criminal, who actually broke the ceasefire and signed the restarting of the war. A year has passed, and following so many attempts, another ceasefire is there, Israel breaks it again. So you see the pattern. Whether you have Netanyahu there or any other leader, which means there will be a constantly tight situation, a very tense situation, even if there are temporary ceasefires or temporary deals, or even a medium range ceasefire. Like, if you want to say long term, you would say 5 to 7 years. But even that. Raylin saying also something tells me that Iran has nukes if earthquakes constantly happen near these facilities. Your take, Mahmoud? Probably. And I mean, judging by the level of hostility that nuclear superpowers have towards Iran and have had and now are actually threatening Iran with nukes, why shouldn't Iran have nuclear weapons? If we want to have a position of no nuclear weapons, that position should be universal, should be global. Who went out of the treaty with Russia in relation to the nuclear weapons and not to expand the nuclear weapons? It was the United States, unilaterally, again. So no one has any sort of right to tell Iran or any other country don't have a nuclear weapon or don't have nuclear technology. I find it bizarre that this can even be a debate in public. How dare a country that has used nuclear bombs on innocent people tell another country you can't have nuclear bombs? What is this arrogance? What is this supremacy? What is this double standards? Why do you not talk about Israel's nuclear, proven to have nuclear weapons? Mordechai Vanunu, who was kidnapped from London for exposing Israel's nuclear program, spoke about that intensively. Why don't you speak about your little genocidal state and its nuclear project? And you go to speak about Iran. And listen, they might already have a nuclear war. Hell, they've been saying that Iran has weapons and is 1 way and 1 hour and 1 week from a nuclear bomb since the 80s. So it wouldn't necessarily be surprising. Or they would have technology to, have nuclear, civilian nuclear projects. But if needs be, they would either be handed or would get a nuclear bomb from someone if they would be facing an existential threat, and Israel poses an existential threat. Traumatic, Javier, and Java, and Bodir also. Thank you very much, and shout out to everyone in the chat as well. And Java, about the Arab nations, and or if you're referring to the Arab establishments too, about the oligarchy and corruption, interested more in money than justice and humanity. I believe that that's the same thing with the Arab world, just like Western oligarchs, like you said. Absolutely. 100%. And again, if a power comes that doesn't have the same approach, or they're just looking for their independence, because at the end of the day, what is Iran doing? Iran is trying to be a sovereign state that isn't a puppet state, like many of the countries surrounding it. And because of that, they're being, they're being demonized. Said Abedi, if there's an escalation, who will be on the side of Iran? It would depend on the level of escalation, how far it goes. If there is a gradual escalation, let's say, so if the United States decides to give Israel the, status quo breaking line now between the two countries that would allow Israel to attack Fordo, for example, whether or not it's effective, but let's say that doesn't necessarily mean it would all of a sudden escalate to something else. But that would depend on Iran and its response to that. Judging by Iran's responses so far, the Iranians are clearly very, very well calculated, strategic in their response, and very wise. If the United States goes to an all-out attack, as in that's it, they're with Israel, and there you have severe blows, the other fronts of Iran that are allied with Iran will be opened, and we might see a case of, that's it, the final scenario, all-out attacks. Part of a calculated strategy too, because Iran, if they want to completely destroy Israel, they can in 30 minutes. But they're not doing that now because they are preparing for something very, very long, by the way. And forget about all of the propaganda, oh, Iran, they're running out of missiles, and Iran, like Netanyahu will tell you, they have 100 or several hundred missiles, and then 1,000 or 2,000, then 3,000 missiles left, then 10,000, then 20,000. All of that is psychological warfare, trying to instill fear in the Iranian people and make them feel like the end is inevitable. All of that is garbage propaganda. No one knows how many missiles Iran has. But what we do know is that they have the capacity. Secondly, even if you try and destroy their nuclear facilities, they have the knowledge anyway. They have the scientists. The technology is there. You're not going to stop them. But the United States is a delusional, collapsing empire. Typical traits of an arrogant, ignorant, delusional, collapsing empire, in denial of its state around the world, and trying to ignore the fact that the world is rising. Other nations are rising. BRICS, a multipolar world, is here, and the people have had enough of their order, of corruption, of spreading wars, of spreading terror across the world, of warmongering, of interfering, of racism, of supremacy, of proxy states like Israel acting as barking dogs against the nations around them. People have had enough. Now, the worst part about that is the fact that we potentially haven't seen the worst of it so far. We can see an essence of that by what Israel is doing, because Israel's barbarism in Gaza is due to how hard it was hit, by the way. Will the United States do that at a larger scale, or will they try and minimize the risk? Or will they listen to anyone who has, some common sense? And I believe there are, there must be some people in the establishment. I mean, judging by the people who resigned and by, some reports that we're getting here and there from within the American establishment, the American administration, at a larger scale, there are people with some common sense. And in other European establishments too. But the leadership is always detached, because that's not the purpose of democracies in the West. The purpose of democracies in the West is to instill the same people operating based on the interests of the same people with different colors. I'm blue, you're red. but we seek the money of the same person. John Kanamalar, did you see the Freudian slip by the American spokesperson today in the Security Council saying that Israel is responsible for the terrorism and destabilizing the region? Oh, that's great. I haven't seen that really. I haven't really read about that. Thank you for mentioning it. But there were so many Freudian slips, haven't there? One of the nicest ones was the one of George Bush and the war in Iraq at the time with his statement. Then Joe Biden. But Joe Biden, I mean, you know, it's a separate story because he was having too many slips, Joe Biden. He called Zelensky Putin. He called the Egyptian president the president of Mexico. He did all sorts of stuff. And that, if you're joining now, is the recent attack that is coming from the video that's coming from inside of Israel about the recent attack that Israel is saying is a drone that passed through the Iraqi airspace, the Jordanian airspace, and the Syrian airspace and reached Israel undetected. Israel said that we haven't seen anything coming in. Okay, now we've been talking about the Trump participation and the potential of the United States participating in this war, and all of the talk that Donald Trump is going to make a decision in 2 weeks, and reports that the United States might use nukes. Some analysts saying that we're just a weekend away from a potential attack coming from the United States. And there was an article in Israel that I wanted to share with you in the main website of the Israeli Broadcasting Authority, speaking about the Russian message to the United States. Now, Russia's message to Iran, the title was labeled, and in it they were talking about the request coming from Vladimir Putin to Donald Trump not to attack Iran, and how the opinion inside of Israel about the participation of the United States is slowly changing, especially seeing that now we're well into the 9th day now of this Israeli escalation and the Iranian response against Israel. What will the United States do? And what will happen exactly? Let's go through this report and try and establish whether the United States will or won't, or at least, review some of the information that is being processed. So, sources involved, according to this article, sources involved in the dialogue between Moscow and Washington say this is not a threat, that the Russians are not sending a threatening message to the United States, because, mind you, some believe that the Russians gave them an ultimatum, and there's a good reason to believe that, by the way, that both the Russians and the Chinese gave warnings to the United States. Sources involved in the dialogue between Moscow and Washington say this is not a threat, but a message intended to dissuade Trump from deciding to attack Iran. And now, according to them, Israel is signaling, these are sources, according to the Israeli Broadcasting Authority's website, in one article, Israel signals Trump may not join the war. That's the first signal coming from Israel about a negative approach coming from Donald Trump. Trump might not join the war. He prefers to exhaust the negotiations with Iran. Now, there have been more statements in relation to Donald Trump talking about the fact that he's preferring to have talks over an attack. But this is what Israel is saying. They added in this report that the United States received a message from Russia, do not attack Iran. As another request, Russia told the Americans, don't attack Iran. This was reported this evening on the Khan 11 News. According to the publication, sources involved in the dialogue between Moscow and Washington say that this is not a threat, but a message from Russia intended to persuade President Trump from deciding to attack Iran. Even tonight, Israel is convinced that President Trump is close to making a decision on the attack on Iran, and they say that it could happen at any moment. We've been hearing similar statements for the past few days, but they were more positive. Meanwhile, in Israel, there are signals that President Trump may eventually decide not to join the fighting with Iran. Sources involved in the plans told Haaretz that Trump prefers negotiations. Even the defense establishment does not know whether the time frame Trump gave this morning, 2 weeks, is correct or whether it is a deception. We spoke about that yesterday. An Israeli source described the military achievements as significant and advanced, but at present there is no picture of a political end to the operation, and it is unclear how the operation will continue. Last night it was reported in the Khan News edition that the senior Israeli official or officials estimate that without the United States joining, the campaign with Iran will last between 2 to 3 weeks. They added, the officials told Khan News that if the United States joins, it will be possible to achieve the war goals within days. In Israel, they are still convinced that the United States is going to join against the attack in the attack against Iran, including an attack on Fordo. However, they added that we will know how to do the job on our own. When Israel starts to say we will know how to do the job on our own, that means that they're having a bit more of a negative approach towards participation from the United States. However, again, nothing can be guaranteed. Now, in relation to one of the statements here in this article, again, Israelis know that very well. At present, there is no picture of a political end to the operation, and it is unclear how the operation will continue. That perfectly describes how Benjamin Netanyahu went on this campaign without necessarily having a proper strategy. And that's not, by the way, something that's reserved to Benjamin Netanyahu. The United States is like that too. Knee-jerk reactions. No proper strategy solves it. Because if you really wanted to solve this whole thing, call for an outright one-state solution with equal rights. Don't you talk to us about equality and human rights 24/7? You do. Then why is that such a big problem when it comes to Israel and when it comes to Palestine? It's very simple. But the position of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu and the statements coming from Israeli officials saying that we would be able to finish the job on our own. Firstly, they're expecting that the United States might not participate. Secondly, they are totally delusional. You cannot finish this operation. And in that same article, they were saying how they need the United States help to reach Fordo. Otherwise, they would not be able to fulfill or achieve the objectives of the war. That's why they are constantly begging the United States to participate. Now, if the United States does not participate, does this mean that Israel will continue only for a few weeks? Or are we going to see an increased attack against Iran, an ongoing attack coming from Israel against Iran. Well, judging by what Netanyahu has been doing so far, Netanyahu doesn't have any clear strategy apart from the strategy of Netanyahu. And that strategy of Netanyahu is simply to keep himself in power and protect himself as much as possible. That depends on what he wants to do. That's solely focused on what he wants to do, whether it's in Gaza or in Iran. And another argument was, well, if he's unable to finish the job on his own and achieve the objectives, and the objectives are, by the way, getting rid of Iran's nuclear program and their strategic missile capabilities. That's these are very, very big aims. And at one point he was saying taking down the regime. He's not going to be achieving any of that. But what he will achieve is another blank check, another open war. An open war that he can drag for as long as possible, where even if he reaches a deal with the Gaza Strip, he can continue because of the war in Iran. Clear? He's facing internal problems with Gaza. He had a lot of pressure from the public to reach a deal. But if he reaches a deal with Gaza and he has like an open confrontation with Iran that can last for months, at least in the hopes of Benjamin Netanyahu, then, well, great. He can achieve some sort of, he can get some sort of reassurance for the prisoners of war's families. Tell them, look, I finished the war. I brought your loved ones back from Gaza, but now I have Iran. Therefore, I still need to be the prime minister. We're in a state of war, state of emergency. I can still skip sessions of the Israeli courts and hearings, and now he's having a whale of a time. No court hearings, no nothing. He's at war with Iran. And of course, sell himself as the best candidate moving forward to run the state of Israel again in another election, because guess what? He opened the front against Iran and he landed serious blows on Iran. And he will tell you that, well, we took down a lot of their missile capabilities and we took down, a tremendous amount of strategic missiles that belong to Iran. And, Benjamin Netanyahu will continue to kind of all of these types of excuses and claims to try and sell himself to the public so they can potentially get another term as the prime minister of the state of Israel. So these, I believe that we covered everything so far in this live stream, from the latest and from all of the events and the important events of today. So we'll wrap it up here for now. Tomorrow, if there are, and there have been, in the past couple of days, there have been significant developments that required my attention in the morning. Therefore, I had a short morning video giving you an update in the morning towards the noon time. If that's the case tomorrow and something happens by dawn or early in the morning, I'll hopefully have another video for you, then followed by a live stream as I've been doing in the past couple of days. So I've reintroduced the videos again, the shorter videos for you. And of course, we'll have hopefully another live stream in a similar time, usually anywhere between 9:30, 10, following that too. And in the meantime, again, thank you so much for everyone for participating in another live stream. Again, thank you very much for your contribution and for sharing all of your thoughts in the community chat. A special thanks for everyone who sent supers, Nobody, Knowledge, Trimatric, Javier, Java Bodir Adel Cookie, Romel Alexander Snowy, Alexander again, thank you very much. Sheetster, May, Tony, Muhammad Hussein, thank you very much, my friend. Michael and Muffy, Mr. Riffley, Boomer and Alan. Thank you very much, guys, for your support, and everyone else who participated in the chat. In the meantime, everyone, enjoy the rest of your evening or day or night, depending on where you are, and enjoy your weekend ahead. And I will hopefully see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone. Salam.